Hi, everybody. This is Congressman Mike Levin. Thank you so much for joining us, as always, for another great virtual town hall. I want to thank our entire team for their help in putting this together, particularly our comms director, Eric, who's out on the East Coast. It's kind of late right now where he's at. I thank him and everybody watching for staying up with us. And we've got a fantastic guest, our dear friend who is back. Dr. Andrea LaCroix. She has just been a great presence, steady, wonderful source of advice throughout the last several months as we've weathered this very, very difficult public health crisis. And we are finally seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, a really great, bright light. We're getting closer and closer every day. For those that haven't heard Dr. LaCroix before, she is the Distinguished Professor and Chief of Epidemiology in the Department of Family Medicine and Public Health at UC San Diego. And we are so thrilled to have you back, Dr. LaCroix. Thank you for being here.
Great to be here.
Well, before we hear from Dr. LaCroix and get to the most important part of the town hall tonight, which will be your questions, I want to take just a moment and share some information, as we always do, about where we are with regard to the spread of COVID-19 across the country and in our community. We now have surpassed 556,000 deaths as a result of COVID-19, just an unthinkable loss to our nation. California now has over 3.6 million cases and is approaching 60,000 deaths, very tragically as well. As we've said for the past year, in fact, longer than the past year, the best thing that we can do to get through this now, what is hopefully the end of this, is to continue to follow the public health recommendations from the CDC, continue to wear our masks, continue to do those things that we know work. And again, get vaccinated. That really is the key now. If you are eligible to get vaccinated, please do so. And everyone, all adults will be eligible to be vaccinated as of April 15th. And I hope that you go and make an appointment as soon as you possibly can. Everybody hopefully will get in line, and then the doses will come from Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson. And I am so excited to see the number of people that are being vaccinated right now in the United States and across our region and in San Diego and Orange counties as well. And I give just all the credit in the world to our public health community for making sure that our community is getting vaccinated as quickly as possible. I also wanted to talk about the American Rescue Plan. You've probably heard a fair amount about this legislation. We passed it and it is now the law. And a lot of residents in our community have already seen the $1,400 stimulus checks, the rescue checks that have come. I know a number of others are still waiting on their checks. If you have any real issues there, I would just encourage you, please reach out to our office. We are here to help you, whether it be with any federal agency, your Social Security, veterans benefits, et cetera. And our team takes great pride in assisting our constituents. So do please reach out if you haven't received your check and you believe that you should be receiving it. There is a ton in this bill. I won't go through it all, but I will just mention a few key provisions. One is the continued Paycheck Protection Program, and specifically a new program being run by the SBA called the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. This is a $28 billion program for our restaurants, for small restaurants specifically, of 20 and under locations, and it's up to a $10 million grant, not a loan, but a grant. And I can tell you, I've heard the stories from restaurant owners throughout our district. We love our restaurants, and many have been just crushed as part of just what has occurred over the last year, which is people haven't been able to go out and eat. And so help really is on the way, and the application process will begin at the end of April. Just the same, I am really excited about funding for our cities. You may know that as part of the CARES Act, which was the COVID relief bill last year, the bigger cities got money, and cities like San Diego got money, counties got money, but the smaller cities were left behind. they received no direct funds. And I'm really proud that the cities under 500,000 this time got money as well. The direct funding will come with the first 50% arriving right around May 10th, is what we're told. And that means, Oceanside, Carlsbad, Vista, Encinitas, Solana Beach, Del Mar, and San Clemente, San Juan Capistrano, Dana Point will all receive many millions of dollars as a result of this. Just the same, our schools, our local public schools are going to be receiving a great deal of assistance to help get schools open as quickly and as safely as possible. And I can tell you, having 2 young children at home enrolled in our local public schools, my wife and I are very eager for the day when things get back to normal at their school. And I give great credit to our teachers during this time for all the work that they've done with regard to remote learning. But as we know, it is not the same. And I think we're all excited for them to get back. And I'm also excited to see the plans for UC San Diego and for San Diego State to reopen largely in person starting this fall. That is great news for all involved. And I give all the credit in the world to our universities, our community colleges. This has been a very, very difficult time for them. I wanted to also just lastly talk about what we're working on next, and that's the American Jobs Plan. So I mentioned the COVID relief bill was called the American Rescue Plan. Now we're working on the American Jobs Plan. That is our major infrastructure proposal. I am really excited at the possibilities here for our region, for big projects that we've been waiting on for a long time. We see a great opportunity for things like improving our rail corridor. We know that that has been very difficult over the years. For projects like our Otay Mesa 2 facility to improve our cross-border commerce and trade, and the NAVWAR site near the airport where we could potentially have a Grand Central of the West. All those are great ideas. And we're also going to be doing the blocking and tackling on long overdue infrastructure projects all throughout our region. And I give great credit to our folks at Sandag and our local electeds because they have been great champions for their respective causes throughout our district. And in addition to just the roads, the bridges, the transit, this legislation is going to have massive investments in things like our water infrastructure, our electric grid, really ramping up the transition to electric vehicles all throughout the United States, and housing, over $200 billion for housing in this legislation, and so much more. It is a great start. I am super excited at the months ahead because we'll actually be digging in and crafting the legislation in our committees, including the committees where I serve, the House Natural Resources Committee and the House Select Committee on the Climate Crisis. Both will have significant pieces of the American Jobs Plan. And of course, after that will be the American Families Plan. And that will be another major endeavor with things like paid family leave, trying to make permanent the child tax credit refundability that we did in the American Rescue Plan, a huge, huge deal for parents with children to really help them in a meaningful way. Other discussions have centered around things like free community college and lowering the eligibility age for Medicare, and finally doing something about prescription drug pricing in the United States. So the American Rescue Plan, that's what we passed on COVID. The American Jobs Plan, that's what we're working on now. The American Families Plan, that's what we'll be working on next. And so it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time to work with the new administration. And I am so grateful for the input of our community. And do not be shy. Please let us know what you think, what's on your mind. And these forums, hopefully we can do in person. I can't wait to do them in person. As much as I love Jeremy and our digital team, and we'll keep putting them online, obviously. We'll keep showing them and we'll keep doing them live online and so forth. But I can't wait to have actual three-dimensional interaction with human beings again. It'll be a wonderful thing. And I look forward to seeing, I hope many of you attend those as well. So with that, I would love to turn it over to our guest, Dr. LaCroix. She has seen up close the COVID pandemic from the very beginning until our current moment, where I hope that we are in this race between the variants and the vaccines. I hope the vaccines are winning. But with that, Dr. LaCroix, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, I just want to say hi to everyone. I hope you are well on your way to getting vaccinated if you haven't been vaccinated already. I love your questions tonight and can't wait to talk about them with you. They're incredible questions as always. Exciting news today. San Diego probably crossed the 40% vaccinated mark, which is super exciting. That is specifically over 1.66 million people with at least one dose of vaccine. Fully vaccinated in San Diego, we're getting close to a quarter of us. We're worried only about, as you say, the fact that new infections have been going down so nicely and now appear to be leveled off instead of continuing to go down. We're 2 to 4% positive in the state, and we need to get them going back down again. Elsewhere in the country, they're saying that we're in a fourth wave in certain places, Michigan, the Northeast, worried about the travel in and out of Florida. So the question is, we're in a much different place than we were the last time we had a big wave in January. It's estimated that in addition to the large number of Americans, 110 million Americans with one or more doses of a vaccine, about a third of us, that another 30 to 100 million were infected with COVID while we were distinguishing ourselves as the country with the most infections in the world. There's less than 1% rate of reinfection if you've had the COVID infection, so that's good. And we know that the vaccines actually create more immunity than the natural infection itself. So we think that it's possible that we're not going to have a big fourth wave, despite what we're seeing around the country. But the one thought I would leave you with is it's projected that if rates continue to increase, even modestly in the states where we're having this problem, that an additional some over 60,000 Americans might die between now and the end of June. So when you think about why can't we do everything we want to do the way we used to do it, think about those 60,000 Americans. Those are the lives that we're trying to save between now and the end of June, and I think we can do it. I think we've never been in a better position to do it. So that would be what I'd start with today.
That puts it in great perspective, and I hope that we all heard those statistics, and that we'll act accordingly with the seriousness that this moment requires. Again, it's a frustrating time because we all so badly want for this pandemic to end, and we want to get back to all the activities that we miss. And at the same time, we have to be very mindful that what we do, the activities that we undertake, and the way that we go about our daily lives, and of course the next couple of months could very well determine the fate of many of our neighbors, many of our friends and our families. So we can do it, Doctor. We can do it. I think we can. I wanted to start out with a few questions for you myself. As you know, unfortunately, we're still seeing vaccine hesitancy from some folks that don't trust the science or maybe have been misinformed about safety. Can you just, again, and I feel like we've done this before, we'll probably have to do it again, but can you speak generally to the safety of the vaccines and the process that Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J went through to receive the authorization?
So all of these vaccines have emergency use authorization, but that means they were reviewed by the FDA, and they went through preclinical development. Actually, they build upon many years of science leading up to this moment. And they went through a phased study in humans, phase 2 trials, and then the big phase 3 trials that you heard a lot about, including many of you out there may have participated in these vaccine trials. There was tremendous public government cooperation during the conduct of the trials. They were well conducted, and the data were reported out to the FDA and reviewed. And these vaccines have been found to be very, very safe. Contrast that to Russia, where the Sputnik vaccine is being distributed to some countries with bad COVID problems. Nobody's seen the data at all. Nobody knows truly about the efficacy. And in countries where they're massively vaccinating with this Russian vaccine, there's still a lot of COVID happening. So I think we need to be grateful to this, the infrastructure that we have here for drug development and approval. And I think we need to, be incredibly grateful that we have already 3 vaccines available to us that appear highly efficacious and very, very safe with very few side effects. So thank you to everybody who made that happen. That was an incredible effort.
Well, it really was. I want to make sure to say this again. I've said it before. At the beginning of the pandemic, one of the most consequential things that Congress did is approve $8 billion for the development of vaccines. And the Trump administration's request was for $1.25 billion of new money, and then take $1.25 billion from other pots. And we worked with the Senate on this. We were in agreement with Mitch McConnell and the Senate, and we said that's not enough. And ultimately, that early $8 billion investment was a really big deal. And then I give great credit to those that took money through warp speed, like Moderna, and those that did not, like Pfizer. They've done a remarkable job, and I'm really proud of the fact that some of that work on messenger RNA happened in our region, in San Diego, and more to come. I think there's just extraordinary potential there. Let me ask you this: are there any important issues around the virus that you think aren't getting enough attention? Maybe the potential, we discussed this a bit, for another surge, or perhaps the need to prepare for other variants, or something else entirely?
I think things are going well in terms of paying attention to the most important issues. We're trying to straighten ourselves out, at the CDC, which had a lot of pressure put on them not to tell the full truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth for many, many months. And they are repairing themselves and their reputation, which is so, so important. I did want to show you just one slide, if I could.
We love slides.
Yeah, one slide. Let me try this. I haven't host disabled. Jeremy's got it.
You got it. Here you go.
So this shows you about vaccine hesitancy. This was a very recent survey run by, I think, the Kaiser Foundation. And so all the blue bars, these are all different parts of our American population, including this total. So if you look at total, all the blue bars, there's only 80% of Americans want to get this vaccine as soon as they can, or they've already been vaccinated. That's pretty cool. Because if they all get vaccinated, that's going to give us a good deal of herd immunity. The darkest green, these are the people that would definitely not want to get vaccinated. And this in epidemiology, this is your classic thing. We study, well, what's the distribution? Who doesn't want to get vaccinated? And you can see that there's 3 main groups that are the most vaccine hesitant, and it's rural residents, white evangelical Christians, and Republicans. If you look at women and men, do we have women and men in here? I think we have gender in here, but it's not minority. It's not people of color. Most Americans want to get vaccinated. So this is why Mitch McConnell came out and encouraged Republican men to get vaccinated. They happen to be the group that was most vaccine hesitant. We want everyone to get vaccinated, and we want that, to protect them. We want to save those 60,000 plus lives that we might lose between now and the end of June. And the best way to do that is for everyone to get vaccinated. So I just wanted to show that slide. There is, a lot of people are sort of, prefer not to get shots, prefer not to get new medicines, and I totally get that. But I am heartened by the data that you just saw, because most Americans want to get vaccinated.
Well, yeah, I think the virus doesn't care what political party you belong to. And look, I was just at the Del Mar Super site the other day. Nobody likes getting shots. So let's just be clear about that. But this is a pretty easy shot. And this is one where the obvious overwhelming benefits outweigh whatever inconvenience there may be to getting the shot. But those numbers overall are pretty encouraging.
I got the shot at REMAC at UCSD on campus, and UCSD reached out to all the teachers in our region. So I was standing in line with teachers, elementary, high school, college teachers, and it was just really a party. I was just so grateful to be in line with all those teachers, and shout out to all of you. There's one teacher in particular I got both shots with. Shout out to Dave, and we got to know each other. The only thing I would suggest they do is play some music so we can dance in line, but that might make you breathe too hard. On the other hand, we deserve to do a little dancing after all this time,
Amen to that. Well, they had music at the Del Mar site, but people were still in their cars. They were getting their shots in their cars. But the music was good for the volunteers.
That's good. That's good.
No, I give incredible credit to everybody that I've seen that's volunteered their time. All the public health professionals that are running these sites, that our folks in public safety, our firefighters are doing a great job as well. And I'm just very grateful to all involved. And my hope is that I can do whatever I can to get you more supply and more predictable supply. And that's something that we're working on every day. I wanted to get your take on a bill that I introduced. It's a bipartisan bill with my colleague Drew Ferguson. It's called the Superbugs Act. And what it does is it tries to engage the broader international community in putting support towards new drug development for antimicrobial resistance, and hopefully to help fight against future pandemics. The intent is for the U.S. to take a leadership role in engaging with the international community to make pandemic preparedness and combating antimicrobial resistance a collaborative global endeavor, and to leverage the financial resources of other countries through coordinated investment into our mutual priorities. I'm curious, have you thought about or studied antimicrobial resistance, and what else do you think we ought to be doing in general to prepare for future pandemics?
Oh, that's such a good question. That is such a good question. I've been worried about it. I haven't studied it myself, but it's certainly a thing that, if we have infections that no antibiotic works against, we're going to have, epidemics and pandemics, depending on how widely those bugs spread. So I'm really glad you put forward that bill. I don't know how many pages it is or how many things are in there. When you guys make a bill, you say one thing, but there might be like 200 things in there. So,
You've noticed how it works.
Let me mention some of the things that people are talking about. And I seriously hope on the federal level, although I don't see it being written about, that there's some group coming together to really prioritize the most important aspects of pandemic preparedness based on, we actually knew all the stuff that we weren't doing. And we were choosing not to do it, thinking that it had been 100 years since the last pandemic. It's like that San Andreas fault. It's like the thing you think is never going to happen, but then it happens and you are not prepared. In fact, we had unprepared ourselves. We had thrown away stockpiles of PPE. We had disbanded the part of the federal government that was specifically focused on pandemic preparedness. We've done everything we could to be unprepared, just about. So let me mention some of the things that people are writing about, and then say to you that I'm hoping there's a group that is working with the president and all of you to identify the most important things. But this is what people are writing about. One is to rebuild the U.S. public health infrastructure, which has been on fume for years, and that should be done through the CDC. That is the agency that runs the public health infrastructure. Another is to stockpile the needed medical supplies for future outbreaks. We were so deficient in our supply chain for gowns, masks, eye protection, the supplies to make the supplies to make medicines, the supplies to make the reagents that you need to do tests. All of that was in very short supply. So we need to rebuild the stockpiles of those items. And the federal government needs to establish an infrastructure to coordinate the supply chain for distribution of those supplies, because you saw that every state was on its own trying to scrape together what they needed to do something. And that just didn't work well, and it was very disorganized. In addition, the American Association of Clinical Chemists argues that we should eliminate the duplicative FDA barrier that barred labs from creating in-house tests. So it slowed down our ability to test for COVID because they had to have this okay from the FDA to develop these assays. And then let me say just a few more, just tiny little major societal things that we need to do. Restore institutional trust in our government in general. Fortify our early alert frameworks for bad problems like pandemic infections. There are countries in the world, I think I read, and this just blows my mind, that Taiwan has not had a single death from COVID. Could that be true? Singapore and South Korea have these early alert frameworks, and they've suffered far, far less than we have. What you're doing in the bill is threat-based resource allocation, so investing in infectious disease prevention and investing wisely for the organisms that are the biggest threat to us. One of these Brookings recommendations is to use solid science in the war room. We weren't using science in the war room. And that had to do with not knowing. I mean, why didn't we know that masks at the beginning would prevent the spread of COVID? Why did we have to argue about that for several months? Accurate reporting was a problem. The promotion of drugs without solid evidence was a problem. All of these are mistakes that we don't have to make again. It's been argued that we need privacy-preserving technology to track community rates of disease, to do contact tracing, and to openly share information. People don't want to give up their privacy, but we need technology that allows you to give this information anonymously so that it can be used to fight pandemics and epidemics. I think you'll agree with this one. We need to increase our mass casualty surge capacity. We were caught short in this pandemic with hospital beds, with ventilators, with ICU beds, and we nearly exhausted those, or did exhaust them in some communities. Another one was to develop public-private partnerships. So the things that you're doing in this bill, you're talking about international collaborations, but like the development of the vaccines has been a tremendous public-private partnership and really illustrates what we can do together across those barriers. And then there's one from me that I want to put out there that I'm not reading about, and that's that at every level in our society, I think we need to do public health education. We need for our children to understand what a pandemic is, what an epidemic is, how it affects people all over the world, and how our behavior is directly related to the amount of disease and death that will spread around. We need them to understand about basic public health measures so that never again are we trying to convince each other that it's worth it to do these basic things to prevent the spread of disease. That was, a level of unpreparedness that I mean, you're not required to take public health in grade school or high school or college. We have a tremendous worldwide uneducated population when it comes to how to control infectious diseases and the threat that they cause. So they do a better job at this in places like Africa than we do here, where they know how to control epidemics like Ebola, et cetera.
Wow, all extremely good points, and I thank you for that feedback. And we will get you the language, and we'll have to have a discussion about it. Several great questions from constituents. I'll start with Mary in Oceanside, who writes, I'm on the board of directors for my homeowners association. We've been having Zoom meetings due to the COVID pandemic. Now the board is pushing to have in-person meetings starting in early May. Not all of the people who regularly attend the meetings will have been fully vaccinated by then. I don't think it's a good idea to have in-person meetings until everyone is fully vaccinated. What do you think?
Yeah, good question. A good question, because it really relates to can we go out if we're fully vaccinated? What can we do? What shouldn't you do? One of the first things I want to say is if you don't feel comfortable doing something, I would try, we're going to have a lot of hybrid meetings going forward. And I really think it's a great idea to allow people if you don't feel well, you should be allowed to go to this meeting without going in person. Hybrid meetings are going to be something that we need to do in the future, especially since the pandemic will be around at some level, depending on our behavior, for a really long time. It's not going to be completely gone. As I explained a few meetings ago, the 1918 flu is still here. We just didn't know it as such. It's morphed and changed, but it comes every year in some form of variant. So COVID's going to be like that. And there will be little times that we have to, pull back, and there'll be other times when the virus is so low that it's as if it wasn't ever here. So what to do? What to do with the homeowners meeting? My first thing is don't go if you're not comfortable. See if they'll do a hybrid. When it comes to flying on airplanes, the other points I wanted to make is it really looks like once you're vaccinated, it's very low probability that you will either get infected or spread the virus if you are infected. It prevents symptomatic and asymptomatic infection. There will be some people that get COVID after they're vaccinated. The viral loads in those people seem to be lower, and therefore it's harder for them to spread. But it's an argument if you're flying, for example, to wear your mask on the plane still. And to do that until the virus is so low in circulation that it's, almost impossible for it to be on that airplane. You get colds on those airplanes. And so you're breathing that stuff. And that's why I think we'll be wearing masks on airplanes for a while. So.
Well, I have to say I haven't, knock wood, I haven't had so much as a cold since all this started. And I don't know if wearing the mask or the hand sanitizer or, the fist bump instead of the handshake, I don't know what it's been, but, that has been pretty interesting. Another one from Marcia in Carlsbad. How long does the Pfizer vaccine provide immunity?
Good question. And there's a lot that we're learning about that. And the answer right now is at least 6 months, but we only say 6 months because the people that got it the earliest have had it in them for 6 months. They really expect at least a year, and it might even be 2 years. But they'll keep studying that. So we'll be able to say how long as we go forward, and longer times have occurred since the first vaccinations. Right now, they're saying 6 months. They also said that if you get COVID without being vaccinated, that some immunity, some antibodies to the virus are present as long as 2 years later, they think. That's what they think is happening.
You had addressed this a minute ago, but Pam in San Juan Capistrano writes, if I have been vaccinated, can I still carry the disease and infect others?
It looks improbable. It looks very low risk for that. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing about getting vaccinated.
That's great news. Megan in Oceanside asks, what do you think about reopening schools? I can weigh in on this. As I mentioned at the outset, my wife, Christy, and I, we've had our 8-year-old and now 7-year-old in our local public schools, and we love our school. We love our teachers. They're doing the best they can. It's been a rough year where, our kids have been on Zoom. I know that others have done hybrid, and, I think for us, we've just exercised an abundance of caution throughout this whole thing. We are very eager to get them back into the classroom as quickly as we can. I think, like so many parents, we know what it's like to try to be the teacher's assistant. My wife and I both have pretty unorthodox schedules, mostly me. Hers is more orthodox than mine. But, I know that it's exhausting. And I particularly look at a lot of our community, and not everyone has equal access to high-speed internet. That's a huge problem. You can't have meetings like this or be on Google Meet for your classroom or Zoom or whatever the forum is if you can't have high-speed internet. Or don't have high-speed internet. So I think my hope is that the money in this American Rescue Plan for school reopening will go a long way There's a ton in there for school reopening. The state of California overall will get $15 billion with a B for school reopening. And then the K through 12 schools in our district alone, or our congressional district alone, will get 125 million. The bigger school districts, Capistrano Unified, about 40 million. Oceanside Unified, about 31 million, just as a couple of examples. And so my great hope is that that will help pay for, the whatever modifications are needed to our schools to get them open as quickly and as safely as we can. While we're waiting for the vaccines to be tested on younger children. I think Pfizer is now engaged in that clinical trial for younger children, as is, I think, Moderna is as well. And I hope that, in time, J&J will also, and they'll all be proven effective and safe for children. And that'll ultimately be how we get really to the end of this and get everyone feeling truly safe and back to normal. But anything you want to add on that, Dr. LaCroix?
I'm a big proponent of teachers being vaccinated. It broke my heart. Yeah. I want, I have family members that work at the CDC and have a school-age child. And throughout the pandemic, they sent their child to school in Georgia. But it was a private school. There was a ton of mitigation. They really kept the kids safe and there were no outbreaks. I think that's possible to do. Hard to do. And I'm so glad that you got money to these schools so that it's not just resource schools that are able to make schools safe. It's all the schools. We had this big divide between the haves and the have-nots when we were starving the public school system with resources to, continue to function during the pandemic. I just think that teachers should be, I'm all for in-person education. I think the teachers, all the adults in that building should be vaccinated if they want to be vaccinated. If they don't want to be vaccinated, we can give them their freedom. But if you want a vaccine, teachers died during this pandemic, teaching the children. That breaks my heart. And I don't think you should have to choose between dying and doing your job. And now we have the means to prevent those deaths, and we should do it.
Well, I think that the rescue plan hopefully will deliver on that, and we're going to be investing in our public schools in a way that the federal government has not in many, many years. In this new American Jobs Plan that I referenced, there's $137 billion for our schools and our child care centers and our community colleges. And I'm really excited about the potential infrastructure investments in those public schools all across our district. And then in the American Families Plan, as I mentioned, the child tax credit being fully refundable. So, in the American Rescue Plan, the COVID bill, on a temporary basis, we said for every child that you have 6 and under, you'll get a $3,600 check, essentially, and it'll hopefully be doled out on a monthly basis. And if you have a child from 7 to 17 years old, you'll get $3,000. And so, that is a really great benefit. And I would love to see the refundability of that tax credit made permanent. And I've co-sponsored legislation that would do that. And we're going to try to get that in the American Families Plan. That'll be coming up. So we have another one from Rachel in Vista, who has an interesting question. I'm allergic to antibiotics, amoxicillin, and seasonal cough. Can I take a vaccine?
Good question. And my husband's sister has a similar allergy to antibiotics. And I can't answer your question, but I can tell you this: go talk to your doctor, maybe see an allergist, and get an opinion about whether or not it's safe to get vaccinated. Those situations, they ask you when you get vaccinated if you've ever had an anaphylactic reaction to anything. They want to know that. I would get an opinion from an expert on your allergy before I got a vaccine, just to be sure it's okay. And if it's not okay, rest assured the rest of us will get vaccinated to protect you. That's what getting up to 80 or 90% vaccinated is all about. Don't worry if you can't get vaccinated for any health reason. We will get vaccinated for you and we will take care of you.
Well said, and thank you. Tom in Rancho Santa Fe asks, hello, if you're 70 years old, which vaccine has the least side effects for seniors, Pfizer, Moderna, or J&J?
Really excellent question. I haven't seen the age-specific data, but I've seen the data that they're reporting for the vaccine trials in general, and it says here that about 4% of clinical trial participants in the Pfizer trials experienced fatigue as a side effect, and 2% got a headache. I certainly was in that group getting the Pfizer. I had some fatigue and I had some headache. But that's not a very high percentage of people, 4 and 2%. And then for the Moderna, it was close to 10% felt fatigued and 4.5% got a headache. And I don't have any statistics on the J&J. I think the level of side effects is low. They're saying that the second vaccine for most people causes more side effects than the first one. Just get the vaccine when you can rest for a couple days and do something you enjoy, watch some good movies, take some nice walks, maybe don't go as far as usual, just do what you feel like doing, and it'll be over with in a flash.
Susan in San Clemente asks, when do you see Washington, D.C. opening up to meet in person with constituents? Susan, I have been waiting for that to happen. This is the first time in the history of the Congress that we haven't had the Capitol open for visitors, at least since the War of 1812, and the Capitol was burned by the British in 1814 when it was closed last year. This has never happened before, and it's been very tough. I'm grateful that there's things like Zoom where we're able. I mean, we've had a zillion Zoom meetings. I think we're all getting Zoomed out, but nonetheless, that's been a great tool for us, and we've met with countless constituents that way. I think it's going to be fairly soon. I think that those discussions started about how we could reopen the Capitol. Of course, we had the awful events of January the 6th, the insurrection that raised a whole bunch of security concerns around the Capitol complex. And then we, of course, had a tragedy again about a week ago where a Capitol police officer was killed. We obviously have to take care of the security of our U.S. Capitol first. Our Capitol Police have done an extraordinary job. They've been under just an immense amount of stress lately. We are engaged with Russell Honore, who is a general from Hurricane Katrina days. He's been engaged by the Speaker to work with us on a strategy to secure the Capitol long term. But I can tell you it's very hard for me because it is the people's house. Part of what makes the Capitol such an extraordinary institution is that it is open to you. It is open to every American and to the world as a beacon of our democracy, as a example of representative government. The genius of the founders is reflected every day in the halls and seeing these places that I just all my life have just always found to be so incredible. To see what happened on January 6th, it still hurts. I mean, it personally hurts to see your workplace attacked, but particularly when that workplace is this this very representation of democracy itself. So that's a long way of saying we'll be open. It'll be back. There'll probably be more security there. I hope there's more security than there was, and that'll be part of it. But every Wednesday morning when I'm in DC, we have our mornings with Mike, where we invite constituents. They come in. We usually have donuts. We have coffee, and I get to see you when you're in town. And when you're there this summer, I hope that that's the case. I hope that we're able to do it again. And we'll obviously keep everyone posted. As soon as it's open, we'd love to see you back in DC. Here's one from Eric in Vista, who asks, if you already have had COVID, what is the current research on immunity? Is it necessary to get the vaccine? And if so, when?
So if you've already had COVID, they are recommending that you do get the vaccine. And the reason is that the vaccine amps up your antibody levels more than a natural infection. In fact, George Rutherford at UCSF says that taking any one of these vaccines gives us so much antibody. We're like, a superhuman after we get them as far as being able to fight COVID. And so far, they're good against the variants that we're seeing, including the UK one, the ones in California. And I think they're even pretty good against the South African variant. So if you've had COVID, it's still recommended that you get a vaccine for that reason. It protects you more than natural infection. And then the other thing about it, if I'm going to remember, geez, I just had a fleeting thought there.
It's all good.
It's all good. I mean, it's all good. Oh yeah, it's this, that some people who've had symptoms that have lasted a long time after they got COVID have actually gotten relief from those symptoms after they got vaccinated, which is really interesting. Nobody really understands it, but it's more than just a few people. So if you have a lingering anything, it might really help get rid of those symptoms to take a COVID vaccine.
Fascinating. I did not know that. David in Oceanside asks, what vaccination percentage or metric needs to be achieved before we can end social distancing and mask wearing?
Yeah, so they're thinking, Dr. Fauci and colleagues think that getting the population up to 80% vaccination will drastically change the way we have to worry. In combination with that, I'd like to see the rates of infection really be down below 1. I mean, when there's very little virus out there and we're all vaccinated, the virus just has nowhere to go. So that's what we want. And we could possibly get there this summer. They're predicting LA will be 80% vaccinated by the end of June, I think, by July 1. I think we're well on our way, as I said, in San Diego to maybe we'll even beat LA. They're moving pretty fast, but maybe we'll even beat them. The one thing to keep in mind is we're so lucky in the United States. We're a wealthy country and we're taking care, we weren't so lucky when we were the worst country in the world with respect to infection, but we're lucky now because we can afford for every American to be vaccinated and they don't have to pay. Other countries are not so lucky. And so, Mike, I hope your bill is taking care of other countries with that international collaboration. We will need to pay attention to the countries where vaccines are not so readily available. And we know that even in beautiful and very developed countries like Germany and Italy right now, they're in lockdown again. So we should be feeling grateful. I feel a little bit almost guilty, I guess, that happy, but a little bit guilty that we are privileged in this particular way. And if in that preparedness that we do, the antimicrobial bill, we can keep all the world prepared, maybe we won't be in this position again,
Well, we had $4 billion in the rescue plan for the global vaccine, Gavi, the Global Vaccine Initiative. And I know that, another concern that hopefully is not too significant is the AstraZeneca vaccine that I think 70 countries are using. I know we're providing some of our supply to Mexico. I think 2.5 million doses is what I heard, because a very, very small percentage relative to ours of the Mexican population has been vaccinated. But your comments are well taken. I think at the end of the day, I've heard WHO and others say the virus will not be eradicated anywhere until it's eradicated everywhere. And I think that's, obviously something that we're going to be dealing with for some time to come. Yeah. And that's where we need to leave it for now. Okay. We're out of time. I wanted to ask you, Dr. LaCroix, again, thank you so much for being with us. Wanted to see if you had any closing thoughts.
Well, just be happy. Get out there, go to your favorite restaurant, sit by the window and enjoy yourself,
Wow.
After you're vaccinated. I did it for the first time this week. And a shout out to Jake's and the Poseidon in Del Mar. Shout out to Encinitas Cafe. I am coming this weekend for a blueberry pancake.
I need to go to Jake's and just see that view. I miss that view, and so many restaurants throughout our district. I'm biased obviously, but I think we have the most beautiful district in the United States, and so many great restaurants along the coast where we can go back very, very soon here. Before we go, I wanted to end on some good news, as we always try to do. And this is in San Clemente, where we're focused today. San Clemente residents have suffered through excessive train horn noise recently, and they're going to be blessed with the sound of silence in coming weeks. The city will renew its waiver for the Pedestrian Audible Warning System, or PAWS for short, which replaces the need for the routine sounding of train horns throughout San Clemente. And I was glad to join our friends at the city of San Clemente in announcing the federal waiver that was needed to operate the PAWS system and end the frequent sounding of train horns in the community. And I'm really happy that we could work with Councilmember Chris Duncan, Mayor Pro Tem Gene James, and others in prioritizing public safety and addressing residents' concerns. So with that, I thank our team. I want to thank my wonderful wife, Chrissy, and our family, and all involved. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.